Hi everybody, this is Gianluca. I am a portrait drawing coach. I've been studying portrait drawing for about 3 years now. I became really good at it, so I think I can teach you some things about it. So, in this video, I wanted to talk to you about proportions, right? Now, proportions is a very broad topic in art. There's for example, a lot of talk about the canons of proportions and the perfect ratio. Scientists have been studying these kind of things for thousands of years. Um, I don't really want to. I mean, I'm gonna talk a little bit about it, but the the focus of this video is gonna be like how practically you can go into getting the right proportions into a drawing, right? Um, so when we talk about the canons of proportion, like for example, what are the canons of proportion? Um, like having a standard measurement for each particular part of the body, right? So for example, if you have a head, like the canons of proportion, for example, for a head is like this height. So from this to this should be the same as the width. That's one of those. There's like thousands of these things. Like for example, the 7.5 heads of a body. Um, the eyes, for example, needs to be one eye apart. So there's a lot of these things which are very useful to know. For example, if you're drawing a portrait and you know that canonically the eyes need to be one eye width apart, then you roughly understand if you made a mistake, right? Because yes, every face is going to be different. There's going to be people with long noses, with very close eyes, very wide lips, but the the difference is going to be very very small in each person, and so um, like roughly it's gonna kind of, if you know the canons of proportions, you can kind of know the mistake that you've made, right? So it's very useful to know them. However, you don't want to rely too much on them, because if you if you're going to, for example, if you go to draw a portrait and you only think about the canons of proportions, like for example the Loomis head, which it tells you to make this equal to this, which is equal to this. Um, that's useful, but not every person is gonna end up in that exact same proportion, right? And so it's good as a start, like when you go into start a drawing, but ultimately you want to draw from observation, because if you go into into drawing a portrait and you see the model there but you don't look at it, and you basically draw from memory, kind of, you kind of lose the sense of the exercise a little bit. So you want to um, know these informations, but they're very useful and all of this, but ultimately you want to draw from observation, because nature is what is going to actually teach you how uh, to draw, right? um, yeah, that's basically it. And it's very important to understand this because, for example, if you go into the Russian academies, right, they use these kinds of proportions, and if you see their drawings, they're very conceptualized. Not of course the average. I'm talking about the average person. They're very conceptualized. They're very um, yeah. They look like mannequins a little bit. Not to offend anybody, um, but that's how it is. and you don't want to end up in that situation, because especially if you draw portraits, the most important thing in the portrait is a likeness, right? So in order to get a likeness correctly, you need to be you need to understand proportions. You need to be able to see proportions. That's better, because it's not like theoretical things. Like proportions is not like something that you understand, you have to study. You just need to learn to see them, because when we talk about a likeness, for example, a likeness is not like, for example, most people say like a likeness is something like ethereal, with like magic and artistic. It's actually not, because a likeness is basically getting a lot, like very small shapes, very small proportions correct. That's it. Once you get those, it's like very technical. There's nothing magical about it. It's like really, really technical. And so, if you understand that, um, it's a lot easier when you go and draw a portrait, because the thing that a lot of people struggle when they go draw a portrait is they are not capable of getting likeness, and that's a problem, because that's the whole purpose of a portrait. So you want to understand that, and so how do you do that, right? Because that's the whole point of this. Now, I'll tell you a little bit about my story about it. So I have studied in a school called Florence Academy. I'm sure a lot of people know about it. It's very famous. And in that school, they use the site size method. Now, the site size method, if you don't know what it is, it's a very long explanation. Like, you just go and Google it. There's a lot of resources about it. But the site size, like how it works, is basically I'll give you a brief explanation about it. You have the subject, and you have the subject here, and you have your drawing, and they're side by side, okay? And so, like, from your point of view, where you're standing, you see the drawing and the subject at the same size, a little bit, okay? And so that you basically have in your cone of vision, when you look at it, you have both your drawing and the subject. So it makes it a lot easier to see proportions. And so how it works is that you go and you look at it in a very flat way, meaning that you go and look at it by, when you observe the subject, you look at it as shapes of values, right? So, for example, if you're drawing a portrait, you're not going to look at it as a portrait, as a head. You're going to look at it as shapes, which is very useful. Like, it's very, very good if you understand it. However, is also it can make your drawings very flat, right? And so, as I said, it's very useful, but you want to combine it with another approach, which is a more constructive approach, and you need to understand things like anatomy. For example, if you're drawing a portrait, it's very, very useful to understand the skull, the bones of the head, so that you can like construct the head and understand really how it works. Because the thing is, like, when you're drawing from life, the head moves, right? So you're never gonna have the same position as you had in the beginning. Like, for example, if you have a portrait that you're drawing in 2 weeks, for example, or a week, the second day is never going to be the same as the first day. Of course, you can get the model to adjust a little bit to get it as close as possible to the beginning, but you're never going to be able to get it exactly perfect, right? So understanding the construction of like what's underneath the movement, like how it's moving and why is it moving, and what happens to the head when it's moving, it's very useful. Instead, for example, if you're drawing from photographs, um, you actually, okay, if you're drawing from photographs, it is actually much more useful to like approach it as if you were drawing from life, because because actually the whole point of drawing is to draw from life, right? To draw from nature. If you're drawing from photographs, like for example, if you don't have the possibility to draw from life, use photographs. I mean, like if you have to choose between not drawing at all and use photographs, like use photographs, of course, but you want to approach it as close as possible as if you were drawing from life, because um, it's like the whole purpose of it is to do it from life. And but if you're drawing from photographs, the photograph doesn't move, right? So you can rely a lot more on shapes, a lot more on 2D shapes, right? And it is much easier. um, so yeah, you want to understand this, and like using shapes of like flat shapes is useful, but you want to combine it with um, 3D constructive approach. And the answer is always in a combination of the two, because there's a lot of people that um, they are very heavy on construction. There are a lot of people that are very heavy on shapes, flat shapes. You actually want to be in between and to understand both of them, because the real answer, let's say, is going to be in the middle. It's going to be a little bit of both, because having too much of one, too much of sorry, too much of each is not going to be the best solution, right? So how do you want to actually improve at proportions? You want to do it by using the blocking exercise, right? The blocking exercise is like the best thing to do if you want to improve proportions, because proportions is the thing that you need to understand very early into the drawing, right? And so when you're going to draw blockings, the thing that you're doing is the beginning stage of a drawing, right? And so you're not going to worry about values, you're not going to worry about edges, you're not going to worry about any like modeling the form. Any of those things are not going to be relevant in here. You're just going to be studying proportions. And yeah, that's it. Basically do a lot of these exercises, and the way to do it is not like to do a lot of them like randomly. The way to do it is to make it so that each exercise you are going to fix some of the mistakes that you make. Now, I understand that as a beginner, you are not really able to see your mistakes, and that's why you need, the best thing to have is like a teacher, like someone that is able to see your mistakes and to tell you, say, hey, you made a mistake, this is too long, this is too short. That's the ideal solution. Now, of course, you're lucky because you found me, but if you want to do it yourself, there's actually a way. It's more difficult, of course, but the way to do it is start with what you see, right? So make a drawing, okay, and like see the mistakes that you've made, like look at it and fix just the mistakes that the mistakes that you're able to see, just those, because of course you're not going to be able to fix the ones that you don't see. So just pick the ones you see and fix them, maybe like even just one or two mistakes, and do these every blocking. Now what you're gonna find is, after a while, after like 10 or 20 drawings, you're gonna find that you're gonna have certain tendencies, right? You're gonna have certain like habits that you like, certain mistakes that you make often. You're gonna see, for example, in 20 drawings, you're gonna see like 15 of them you made the same mistake. And that is actually very good news, because you spotted a habit that you have, and now you can fix it. Like, for example, I give you, in my experience, when I started to study, I used to make the faces too wide, right? So this height versus this width, like, was very very wide, and I didn't see it. But the drawing looked wrong, but I didn't see it. And it's only after a while that I started to study and to understand it that I started to see it. Or even more, another thing is, when I started to go at the academy, at the Flores Academy, I used to make, because we draw figures and the model, I used to make the figures too thin in the beginning, and I didn't see it, and the teacher always came to me and said, "Hey, it's too thin. Look at it's too thin." I just didn't see it, but I fixed it because they told me to. And after a while, like, of course, I tried to see it, but it was very very, like, I didn't see it in the beginning. It's only after some um, yeah, practice and some, like, making actually the adjustment, that I started to see it. And so this is what you want to see, because what's going to happen is, after a while, your eye improves, your eye gets better, and you will be able to see mistakes that you didn't see before. And this is good, because you're improving, and that's very good. And the other thing that's going to happen is going to shift your mindset a little bit, in a way that like, your mind is going to start to say, okay, I see a mistake, I fix it. Because the problem is that a lot of people are actually lazy. They're lazy to fix mistakes. They, like, don't want to go and change it, because it's actually very painful to go and change a mistake. And so they leave it there, even if they see it. But the right mindset that you want to have is, I see a mistake, I'm gonna go fix it. That's the right mindset. And if you start with this practice, it's blocking practice. So you make a drawing, you spot a mistake, and you fix it. After a while, you're gonna do it automatically, right? You're gonna say, you're gonna see a mistake, you're gonna fix it. You're not even gonna think about it. You're gonna do it automatically, and that is actually very very good. So this is it for the video. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe. I also wanted to say that I have a beautiful mentorship program, in which I'm going to give you personalized critiques. So you're going to send me your drawings, we're going to have a one-on-one video call, and I'm going to give you critiques about your drawings. I'm going to give you exercises, like, specific to your situations, personalized exercises. You're going to have a step-by-step program, and I'm going to follow you through every step of it. This program is specifically designed for, like, amateur people, not like people that want to turn professionals, because I'm not gonna like, I want to make it as enjoyable as possible. So it's going to be very slow, and this is specifically for people that, as I said, want to pursue it as a passion. Maybe they've always wanted to learn to draw portraits. Maybe they've always wanted to draw the portrait of their loved ones, of their children, of their grandchildren, and they maybe never had the time, they maybe never had the opportunity to study. Maybe they thought that they didn't have the talent, and all those bullshit that you hear online, that you need talent and all these things. This is for you, and it's a really good program that I have. As I said, I really know what I'm talking about. I'm not gonna joke around. I'm very serious about this stuff. And also, one more thing that I want to say is this is not for people that are like they are like looking for the magic button, the magic pencil, and they think that by buying my mentorship they're gonna find the magic pencils that they're gonna use for making their drawings. It's gonna take practice. It's gonna take a lot of work. I'm gonna give you, as I said, critiques. I'm gonna give you exercises that you need to follow, because of course if you're not going to follow the exercises I cannot give you critiques. And so yeah, if you are serious about this, if you want to learn, if you understand that you need to practice and all of that stuff, this program is for you. So contact me, and I'll see you in the mentorship program. Bye bye.